Welcome to the morning news. Look at how seamless this all is. Tom and Adam, eat your hearts out. Here are your Saturday morning wrestling news headlines. CM Punk has admitted to watching NXT TV and has reserved praise for two NXT superstars. Triple H has thrown shade at Impact Wrestling. And new matches have been announced for WWE TLC 2020. Find out which ones in a little while. So we have news from the cerebral assassin, the gamer, the king of kings, Triple H, who is fresh off lying about NXT being open to work with promotions the world over. He's been speaking to Ryan Satin about all kinds of things, including NXT's recent signees to the Performance Center, which include former Impact Wrestling stars Desmond Xavier and Zachary Wentz, formerly, of course, of the Rascals. And he's been speaking about these sort of professional wrestlers, finding their feet in the world of professional wrestling, find out who they are, what makes them tick. And he said things along the lines, I've got direct quotes here, everybody. So you look at all these talents. These two kids are, I think, I'm very impressed with the things that they've done. Ryan Satin, you shouldn't write things verbatim. That's not good journalism. Anyway, but I don't know that they've really had a lot of helping hand to help them have them to get where they are. That is a direct quote off the Fox website. I think we know what he's trying to say here. Triple H is sort of shooting on Impact Wrestling, if you want to say. He doesn't know if the powers that be in Impact Wrestling have really helped Mr. Zachary and Mr. Desmond help who they find their feet and who they are really today. Sam, it's a mess off that quote. I'm very sorry. I should have changed it before. Just copy and paste it blindly in to this document I've got in front of me. But what do you make of that? Triple H sort of shooting on the process and the helping hands that the former Rascals would have got from Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, it's weird because obviously Impact is a very well-established promotion, regardless of its position and its placement within the wrestling world today. Impact has been in the past a bigger company. It's been through some harder times. It's bounced back a lot of times. And there's been a lot of good talent going through the doors there and a lot of good talent hanging around and helping out. I don't think it's fair to dismiss the talent side of it, because I don't think the talent side of Impact has ever really been the problem, unless 2010 and Hogan and all of that stuff. But, the younger talent at Impact is what makes Impact special. And it's why the buzz is there and back around Impact now. And so I don't think it's fair to sort of lump that onto, all of the road agents and stuff there. Surely.
I mean, it's weird for Triple H to throw shade at Impact Wrestling. This is Triple H. This is NXT. God.
Yeah.
Triple H. This is NXT, apparently, to Impact. Why is he shooting down on them like that? But we have more quotes, which hopefully make sense, from Ryan Satin's interview, where it says, Triple H is still speaking about the former Rascals, where he says they sort of just figured it out on their own. They figured out their own personality and charisma. They figured out their in-ring style. They have and made it their own. I'm a big fan of that. So, unless they've come to him and said this is fact, I don't know how Triple H would know this to be true. Do you?
No, but the thing is as well, it's something we hear a lot about in the wrestling industry, that people are they're always worried about their place, aren't they? As you would be. You're in an industry built off flavor of the month. That's how wrestling's always sort of worked. And if your time in the sun has gone and all of a sudden there's not really a lot for you to do and you start just being thrown into 6-man tags and and it just sort of becomes a generic, maybe every couple of weeks, then I can get that you may be feeling a bit hurt by that process, to the point where you would mention it and you would talk about it. But at the end of the day, I think that's just part of the business. I don't think they're the type of people that would, go on like that about a company that, they have really been a big part of helping lift the image of. But it's just, it's odd. It's a good signing either way for WWE here. I mean, they've got two incredible talents.
I mean, admittedly, I'm not the biggest Impact Wrestling fan. I'm sure long-term viewers of this channel will know that. But one thing I have seen in sort of the fallout on Twitter, which is always the best place to get a hot take or two, is that the Rascals just generally were very underutilized in Impact Wrestling, and how they sort of handled them and sort of the departure from the company. It left a sour taste in the mouths of sort of Impact Wrestling fans.
I've got a mate called Rich who is obsessed with Impact, and he absolutely loves the Rascals. And he was buzzing at the fact that they were leaving. He's like, finally, we're going to get so much more out of them. as like you, I'm not really on top of Impact all the time. I try and just go through every couple of months and keep track and watch an episode here and there. But yeah, I think a lot of people were expecting them to go the AEW route, but it's interesting that they've gone via NXT. NXT is a place where I think they will 100% shine. They can't really get lost in the shuffle as well. I think they'll be fairly unique within that sort of area.
Yeah. And continue with the Impact Wrestling news this morning. We had confirmation deep into the night last night that one AEW World Champion, Kenny Omega, will actually be appearing on Impact TV this coming Tuesday. Of course, we all saw what happened in that main event of Winter is Coming, and so am I. On last Wednesday's episode of Dynamite, of course, Don Callis, Impact Wrestling Supremo, turned Kenny Omega's uncle. I think they kept calling him on commentary. Yeah. He was, of course, trained by Kenny Omega's actual uncle to do the wrestling. Way back in the day, he got involved, even though Kenny Omega had a gentleman's agreement with Jon Moxley saying, let's put all the toys and all the weapons to one side. Let's have a straight-up wrestling match, pal. But Don Callis gets involved. A microphone enters the ring thanks to Don Callis. Kenny Omega twats Jon Moxley upside the head and then gets a dirty victory. They then run away to a getaway car, which was just a fantastically shot scene, I thought. Don Callis says tune into Impact Wrestling this coming Tuesday to find out what's gone on here. And we all sat here a couple of years ago, didn't we, Sam? There was rumours that Impact Wrestling were interested in Kenny Omega. Just, I think it was slightly before the formation or the confirmation that AEW was a thing, and everybody laughed. And now we're here. And now we're here.
Eating our words. I think at the time, obviously, as we said before, Impact has sort of fallen on pretty hard times. But right now, it's really on the upswing. But even though it was on the upswing, it was still sort of too early in that upswing, I think, for a lot of us to actually go, you know what, it could work. They could do this. I think the main thing was that, you know, at the time, a lot of people were, there were a lot of stories around the fact that people were being cut from the company. They didn't have X amount of money for these people or this was a per appearance type deal. And I think at the time, a lot of us were maybe right in thinking that AEW might not have been able to pull off that sort of financial get. But now with AEW behind it and with Impact right at the forefront, this is mental.
And what's your sort of reaction to? Because my initial reaction to the working relationship between Impact and AEW becoming clear, it was like, what did AEW really gain from this? But I've been thinking about it. Did AEW potentially get sort of a feeder system involved with Impact Wrestling where they can send the people who predominantly appear on Dark to get more seasoning and exposure on a different network and stuff like that? What do you think comes of this? More on the AEW side of things rather than Impact.
Well, it was my first thought as well, is Impact gets a lot out of this, but what the hell's AEW doing? And so part of me was immediately like really cynical old wrestling mindset, was sort of like, oh, they're going to see who's popular and then just raid the talent. But as I sort of warmed to it, and it just seems like there are a couple of opinions out there saying things like, oh, well, AEW just gets to look really good doing this. And it's like, they look really good anyway. They don't need to look like a nice team. There's got to be some sort of plan in place here. And I think you might be right. But in my opinion, I think we might be potentially looking down the barrel of a coalition of outlying wrestling corporations. So AEW's already partnered with AAA. If they're now partnered with Impact, potentially NWA. Partner with New Japan, NWA. If that becomes its own governing body for wrestling, similar to, you know, the World Wrestling Federation was, and IWGP and the Global Honored Crown, if there's some sort of generalized NWA style control over this, then we've literally got an almost territory system back where they can send talent in and around. You get just talent popping up everywhere. You don't have to be watching one show to see them pop up. You're going to get dream matches. You're going to get X, Y, Z, cross-promotional. It's potentially huge, potentially boundlessly huge.
It's going to make our job so... Imagine if a coalition does come to fruition, like a proper bona fide coalition.
Yeah.
We all have member brands of this, well, you know, the new NWA.
Yeah.
How many wrestling shows are we going to have to watch?
I just don't.
It's hard enough. It's hard enough to keep up as it is. But I tell you what, the prospect of a proper traveling world's champion here in the year 2020, that's something I'm on board with. I like to see
huge. And I think if we were to have that sort of coalition or governing body or sort of central league of wrestling, you could have a station in every country. You could have a promotion affiliated everywhere. It could be a baseball type feeder system where you work your way up. If you're working with this company, you have a direct route to the top. It's sort of, I think Ring of Honor did that fairly recently with MCW, I think it was, and a couple of other promotions where there were qualifying matches and eventually you'd make it to Ring of Honor TV as part of this huge tournament. I think we'll get a lot of stuff like that, but yeah, the idea, as you said, that we could have a world champion that travels the world non-stop, wrestling around the world all the time, it's alien to us, I think, because we've never had that.
Yeah, and I would just like to wish everybody who wants to watch Impact Wrestling this week all the best in actually finding Impact Wrestling, because it's actually very hard to find. I think we can watch it on Twitch, Sam, over in the UK. That's what I understand, yeah.
Channel 5, I don't know if it carries it live, but I know Channel 5's on-demand service used to carry Impact. I think it still does carry Impact and WWE, which is quite funny. But, yeah. Yeah,
so there you go. This coming Tuesday, Kenny Omega and Don Callis will tell all, but that was massive enough news. Huge. But now we have even bigger news. News that will shake you to your very core, dear viewers. So sit down and brace yourself, because CM Punk has admitted that he watches NXT sometimes.
Sometimes, sometimes. Every now and then.
A fan asked him on Twitter last night, "Hello, Philip." I know he hates that. "Hello, CM Punk. Do you watch NXT?" And he replied, "Not always, but I need stuff to watch while I'm doing treadmill work." So while CM Punk is doing the sweats on the treadmill, he's watching NXT.
That's just, it's weird to think, because obviously when you think of CM Punk, you think of the fallout of him being burned by the company and all of that, and we never thought we'd see him come back. And then we had the backstage thing, and still fairly vocal about, his relationship with the company and the negativity surrounding that. But the fact that he's just openly yeah, I watch NXT. He's just a stand-up guy in that respect, isn't he? I think he'll just answer any question and just, yeah.
I reckon he uses it as motivation, doesn't he? He watches Johnny Gargano flying around that ring and he says, "I'm going to keep up with that on my treadmill." Or maybe he's just a very vengeful man and he thinks that's NXT, that's going to make me angry, and that's going to make me do the sweating even harder than I would do if I wasn't watching something that angered me.
Maybe he's just going to sit there and wait and wait and wait, and then one day somebody's going to appear on that treadmill screen in front of him, and he's just going to be like, "Right, rings Vince." That's very wishful thinking.
There's a segue to be had here, Sam, so I'm going to take it. That segue is that guy could be Pat McAfee, or Pat McAfee, however you want to pronounce it. Because CM Punk has bigged up Pat McAfee like nobody has bigged up Pat McAfee before. Do you want to know what he said, Sam?
Go on, tell me.
He went onto Twitter and he tweeted, this being CM Punk, of course, pronouns Ross, you dick. He said, "A lot of this has to do with circumstances, because a wrestling fan tweeted him saying, has Pat McAfee not been brainwashed, because of his the promos and whatnot, how all the promos in WWE, by and large, the cookie cutter, they follow the same formula, everyone has to do the same sort of thing, because they all go through the same performance center and they all get trained in the same classes and whatnot." So CM Punk says about Pat McAfee's promos, "A lot of this has to do with circumstance, but everyone else on the shows, in brackets, the shows, should feel embarrassment and subsequently use," all in capitals, "said feeling to better themselves at the fact that Pat McAfee is a better promo than everybody on the shows." Brackets once again.
Bit of a backhanded compliment that toward the rest of the locker room. But
you're all crap, but Pat is better than all of you. Raw, SmackDown, NXT. You're all crap, but Pat is better.
Yeah, the thing is, he is right in a way in that if he feels that way, that's his opinion, and if he feels that somebody who's come from outside the world of wrestling, stepped into the world of wrestling, and is doing a better job than people who are being paid a large amount of money to train specifically to be wrestlers, then you do have to use that negativity that would be brewing in your mind to push you forward, to engage with that sort of, drive to better yourself, I guess. But at the same time, NXT's great. I don't know who he's watching on NXT and just going, and rolling his eyes at, but it's not quite that level of show for me. But he understands wrestling obviously a hell of a lot better than I ever will. But
Yeah, same here, but I'm sitting thinking you can't be watching Everrise and thinking they can't cut a promo.
Yeah.
The peak of 1980s wrestling is alive once again, thanks to Everrise. Yeah, it's a weird one. It is a backhanded one.
Yeah.
And Punk has been bigging up not just Pat McAfee, but also somebody else in NXT's roster, and that one is Rhea Ripley. Because somebody asked CM Punk if they think that what the ceiling is in Punk's mind for Pat McAfee if he was to fully commit to professional wrestling. Because we all know that Pat McAfee's got like 7 different businesses. He's a millionaire in each one. Whatever the promo was from a while ago on NXT, and Punk says that he's already. This is Pat McAfee once again. Promos, Sam, I'm having a mare here. CM Punk has said that Pat is already the best thing in NXT, not named Rhea Ripley. So in CM Punk's eyes, the best full-time performer we can infer from this, in Punk's eyes, is Rhea Ripley. Thoughts on that one?
I think he's not wrong. She's definitely one of the best talents WWE has, just quietly building away there. And one day I think she's going to be like household name megastar level. She's going to be up there with Sasha and Bayley and, you know, those types of lauded champions. But yeah, she's on a tear career-wise, and we just got to keep moving from strength to strength. But out of everybody, it surprises me that Rhea would be the one that he would be like, yeah, but at the same time, I completely see it.
It's the Rock stuff, isn't it? The Punk.
Yeah.
This is his brutality as well. It's weird because I saw Triple H speak. I think it might be the same interview with Ryan Satin where he's on about how Rhea Ripley's plans changed drastically because of the pandemic. And I think that WrestleMania loss is still arguably the most baffling booking decision of the year, of course, to Charlotte Flair. And then how Charlotte's win, instead of like passing on her star power to some new faces, it just benefited Charlotte. And Rhea Ripley hasn't recovered from that, in my opinion. And it's a weird place to find it, because heading into WrestleMania, I was thinking, bloody hell, this is the next big thing in the women's division. Rhea Ripley, she's got it. That victory against Shayna Baszler this time last year, it was thinking, wow, everyone is fully behind this person. It's going to happen. But then it's just derailed and it hasn't recovered.
That's it. And the thing is, she's a top quality talent. We've just got to wait for it to sort of push her back to the top again. But yeah, it's a difficult one, especially with a company the size of WWE, who are constantly hiring, constantly building up characters, constantly bringing new people in. They've got a whole house show full of people we've not even seen on TV, and that's been the case since day one. So, I mean, NXT is literally a proper farming system. It works in that manner. There are a lot of people there, and the fact Rhea is so prominent is fantastic. But I do think, yeah, you're right. The loss at Mania was unbelievably strange. And I think she'd come out recently and say that it just knocked her confidence and everything. And it's understandable, completely understandable. But I think the company know what they've got with Rhea. And I think that they have to capitalize, because if they don't, somebody else is gonna.
Yeah, I'm shocked she's still in NXT. I thought she'd done everything she could possibly do.
Yeah.
In NXT, I thought the main roster was certainly something she would be doing by now. But moving on to the main roster, look at these segues, Sam. As if we're professionals or something. TLC 2020 happens on the 20th of this very month, and we had 2 more matches added to the card during last night's episode of SmackDown. We had Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens for the Universal Championship. I think it's going to be a TLC match, although I don't think that was confirmed on last night's show. It is going to be.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it all yet, Sam.
It wasn't like confirmed, but Owens says it to him.
Yeah.
He like suggests it.
We can get all the tables and the chairs and the ladders involved, because this is, of course, TLC. And on top of that, we had Sasha Banks defending her Women's Championship against Carmella. That was added to the card as well, in the midst of a very sassy and backhanded promo where they were sat in different rooms and speaking to each other through the magic of technology here in the year 2020. I don't think a stipulation has been put on that one just yet.
No.
Although with this being a stipulation pay-per-view, you have to imagine that it might do.
Imagine they give them the stairs. In a stairs match. Just no prep, no nothing. There you go.
Sasha just at the bottom going like that. Carmella come back and she's at the top going, I'm untouchable because I'm at the top of the stairs. It all works. And then on top of that, just before the show went on the air last night, we had Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt confirmed for the show as well.
Wonderful. Yeah,
I
mean, the SmackDown this week was great. I think it was a really strong week. But yeah, the promo in particular, if you haven't watched SmackDown, you don't plan on it, watch the Sasha Carmella promo, watch the main event, and watch the opening promo with Roman Owens.
Oh, God.
Jay.
When Kevin Owens was saying to Roman, let's just fight now. And Roman goes, Kevin, I'm a gentleman. There's a lady in the Kayla Braxton was in that interview in Rome, and she still stood there. She's like, Kevin, there's a lady in the ring. I'm a gentleman. Grow up. I thought, how does that guy keep getting better every single week? He's fantastic.
This is it. He's just going from strength to strength. I don't think there's been a more natural fit in character to somebody than this in quite some time. So it's just unreal, isn't it?
Yeah. And more headlines come. So I should say, by the way, there's one more match on the TLC card, which was made before last night's SmackDown. Of course, it was Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler defending the women's tag team titles against Asuka and Lana. I don't think there's a stipulation put on that yet, but surely that's going to be a tables match, just because Lana and Nia Jax are involved in that one. Yeah. More headlines coming out of last night's SmackDown. Big E got himself a new theme, and I'm not sure if the choke returning, Sam, was a permanent return, or if that's just because it was involved in the Pat Patterson tribute match, where obviously all former Intercontinental Champions were involved. And when Big E was Intercontinental Champion back in 2013, I think it was, he was doing the choke and this, that, and the other. But our pal Wale has made Big E's theme, and it was a banger.
Oh, is it Wale?
It's Wale.
Oh, I didn't even realize. I just heard the music. I was like, oh, he's got new music, and I'm writing the script furiously.
It is Wale.
But yeah, that's class. I genuinely, I think that it's nice for Big E to be able to break away a little bit from the New Day, have that unique flavor, sort of give him his own little run there. One thing that happened, though, when Big E came out was that Michael Cole quite clearly referred to him as a former member of the New Day tag team.
I made this a WTF moment, Sam. Yeah. You read my mind. How dare he say that? Different brands, but it's still alive.
But this is it, is it? Because this is the type of thing they would do. Change his music and then just drip feed it, and then have a moment where he comes out to celebrate and then it all falls apart and then stilted booking for months.
They wouldn't dare, Sam. And if they did dare, I would hop on a plane when I'm allowed to, and I would go and shake my fist
just
at the Stamford Connecticut
Tower. Damn you,
Walter! And the other headline coming out of last night's SmackDown, there was a return or a re-debut, and I've not seen this bit yet, Sam. So I'll let you take the floor here.
Yes, so, like last week, let's just give it some context. Last week, Rey Mysterio, Dominic Mysterio, and Aaliyah Mysterio just interfered as faces in the Corbin match, just to distract him, just getting in his way, and then eventually cost him the match. This week, Corbin brought his backup with him, because Murphy came out with the Mysterios, Corbin brought backup. The backup was Cutler and Blake. The Forgotten Sons, they're back. They're back.
And did we reference the fact that they are the Forgotten Sons, or are they just two new superstars? Is that
so essentially what happened was they came down, they stood there, and they weren't referred to by name for a bit. Now they're clean shaven, they were wearing hoods, and they were properly covered up. They just looked like two big bouncers, basically. But they came down, and all match they were sort of staring down the Mysterios a little bit and trying to make them keep their distance. But then it's referred, like it's just revealed, it's Wesley Blake and Steve Cutler of the Forgotten Sons. And then it cut back to them and they're all clean shaven. I was like, oh my God, because I didn't see them. But yeah, it's interesting because they did mention it and then they just moved on. And I think that's the right thing to do. But they sort of like, oh, we haven't seen them in months and all of this stuff. And it's the best they can do with it, and I think it's a nice, clean start for them. The side of Corbin. Corbin's naturally in and around a lot of the action on SmackDown, so they're going to get some featured TV time, probably end up as a tag team unit surrounding Corbin, and then they'll break off on their own. And I think, it's already a better gimmick than the Suns was, because the Suns, while it had promise, like if you take all of the controversy out of it, while the Suns had promise as like an idea, and they had one or two standout moments in NXT, nothing really happened for them that much. Like they had a little bit here and there, and then they'd always just come and go. And it was just strange. Whereas this, they'll at least be centralized. They'll be with Corbin if they are indeed going to be Corbin's henchmen. I don't know. It was never confirmed. But they'll sort of be at the forefront. And I think it's a better position for them to be in. It's a more natural fit here to be surrounding Corbin. And I think hopefully it'll springboard them a bit faster than that absolute cluster of what happened to their former gimmick.
I was going to say, because the Forgotten Sons gimmick, it couldn't possibly work now, because the Forgotten Sons gimmick is now Retribution. They are the Forgotten Sons under a different name, aren't
Basically,
they?
Well, the Forgotten Sons were mercenaries, I guess. They were like, they always referred to as, especially Riker and I think it's Cutler. They used to be, I think one of them might actually still be a US
Cutler.
Marine.
Cutler was, yeah.
There were military history in the team. They would dress in a sort of mercenary style outfit. They were very sort of rough and ready, the type of people you'd expect to have like a nuclear fallout shelter in their gardens. And they were interested, and that was the thing. It was a really interesting gimmick. They just never really expanded on it. And I think if they'd done some expansion on it, they would have been a bit of a bigger deal. But, you know, that's all done now, and I guess we can just move forward.
Yes, we can. So there we have it. There is your Saturday morning news headlines. I've been Ross Twiddell from Cultaholic Wrestling, joined by Sam Driver. Sam, any closing thoughts before we bugger off?
No, I'm going to shoot graded and hopefully not be too late with it today because schedule.
Yeah, and I'll be back later today with the WTF moments. I'm sure there'll be a list going up in the evening as well because we've got all the content here at Cultaholic Wrestling. But for now, thank you and goodbye.
Tatty bye.